Welcome into the opening line report, U.S. presidential election betting with Teddy Covers. I am Drew Martin. Each and every Monday, we do this show right here live on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, 1 o'clock Eastern time at Teddy_Covers on Twitter. Teddy, welcome in. How you feeling today, buddy?
I'm feeling all right, Drew. Look, I'm excited, all right? In theory, we've got games that are going to be starting in like a couple of weeks. So the baseball's ramping up, the NBA's ramping up. And of course, we still have the hope for football in the fall. So I'm excited to see the possibility of sports beginning once again. And of course, I'm excited to talk about the little presidential policy. We did a pod, and I went back and checked the date on it.
Okay.
It was the week before the South Carolina primary. So it was the third week of February. And we did a pod back then, and I really thought it had to be updated. You really thought it had to be updated.
Yeah.
It was time to do one on the, and we're going to talk today presidential election odds. We're going to talk vice presidential nominee odds. We're going to talk odds of who's going to win various states. Let's do a little politics today. I think there is some interesting discussion to be had.
Yeah, and everybody welcome in. Feel free to chime in the live chat. And also on Twitter, we took a couple questions. We'll get them at the end. So happy to answer any questions live here on the chat box. And like Teddy said, we're getting into the politics show. It has been a while. We do appreciate y'all reaching out, wanting to hear this. So heck, in a lot of places in the world, you can bet it. However, I don't believe you can bet it legally here in the U.S. Please correct me if I am wrong there in the chat box. But Teddy, what are you thinking? Not burying the lead here. We got Joe Biden, minus 160 favorite right now. He's really gotten a bump up here in the betting markets. I'm reading these off of Bet Online right now. We got Donald Trump plus 130 to win the election. So that's Joe Biden minus 160, Donald Trump plus 130 underdog. Throw it over to you, man. How are you feeling about these odds?
So there's a lot to talk. There's a lot to talk about from the top. And I wanted to take a minute before we started talking about Biden and Trump in particular to talk about, again, where we were at the last time when we had this discussion. And the last time we had this discussion, again, we're talking about February, Donald Trump was in the minus 160 range. And whoever the Democratic nominee was presumptive in the plus 140 range. And at the time, in February, pre-COVID, I said, Donald Trump is priced really cheap, considering where the economy is at today. I thought Donald Trump was priced far too cheap at minus 160. I said he should be minus 250, minus $3 in that range. And I recommended a bet on Donald Trump to win the presidential nominee, to win the election in that minus 160 range.
Pre-pandemic.
There were two factors in play. One, it was pre-pandemic. Two, it was that at the point where we had this discussion, it was the week before the South Carolina, Biden to win the Democratic nomination at that point was plus 1,500.
Wow.
Okay. There was plus 800s, plus 1,000s, plus 1,500s, plus 1,600. Biden was a big dog just to come out of the Democratic Party, which factors into what the equation is for the bigger picture in the election. But that week, Biden won South Carolina, and he won it by more than people thought he was going to. And then he went into Super Tuesday and dominated that. And all of a sudden, the plus 800s and plus 1,000s and plus 1,500 on Joe Biden, and now he's shocked. So he was a big dog for a while. Now, obviously, since that time, we've seen the market shift, and the markets have taken a while to shift. All right. This didn't happen day one of COVID. This didn't happen during the lockdown. The real shift towards Biden in the broader marketplace has come much more with the unrest in the country, the demonstrations, the racial question that has been on center stage, and the racial issues that this country has had that have been on center stage. Those factors, or that factor in particular, has moved the markets far more than COVID did, for whatever that's worth. So, but basically what we've seen is the odds shift. Biden was +1, and you said he was +1, -160, +130. I'd rather promote a shop that has a 10-cent spread. So we'll talk at Biden -160, Trump +140, as opposed to the books that are going to take 15 cents on presidential bets. And again, those little edges, does your book take in 15 cents worth of juice or 10 cents? Makes a big difference over the course of time. So if you're talking about a standard, a 20-cent swing, Biden -160, Trump +140. And that was basically the opposite of this 3 months ago, where it was Trump -160 and moving up and Biden +140. But what we've seen in the month of June, at the start of June 1st, Biden's pick 'em. Trump's still the chalk. So it really was the month of June. And that was obviously when the protests and the racial unrest was on center stage throughout the country. That moved the number more than the COVID closures, or perhaps where we're seeing now the combination of the racial unrest and the issues with Trump dealing with some of the continued COVID-19 concerns. And those two factors together are clearly, Biden's the chalk right now. And the number is moving fairly quickly, given the parameters of the U.S. presidential election marketplace. And again, I want to talk about where you can bet this. Legalized betting on the presidential election at sports books in Nevada and throughout the states is not there. Okay, we haven't gotten there. I read an article from the Legal Sports Board, a good follow on Twitter, talking about, don't hold your breath for legalized presidential odds in the U.S. All that said, if you want to make a bet on who's going to win the presidential election, you'll be able to find a place to get down. And the offshores and the bookies are certainly taking action on this in a way that the legalized, regulated sports books have been forced out of the market.
Well said, Teddy. And we got a bunch of people here in the chat box. Teddy Scott, welcome in. Paul from England, so the other side of the pond here, with a couple things to say about the election. Scott Brown, Brandon asking, will we discuss the lines from the Senate? Dems seem to be value to take it back in the Senate. Yeah, Brandon, we'll be touching that. The Senate elections, get Teddy's thoughts on that here in just a minute. But Teddy, yeah, I'm reading from Bet Online right now. We got Joe Biden -160, Donald Trump +130. It also goes down the list here. Mike Pence +4,000, Hillary Clinton +5,000, Kanye West making noise here at +10,000. Teddy, I know you wanted to bring him up. Michelle Obama at +10,000, Nikki Haley at +1250. That's even more than 10,000, excuse me. Elizabeth Warren and Mark Cuban kind of finishing out here. This is according to Bet Online. But yeah, the -160, +130, +140, if you can find it, with Donald Trump. I thought you brought up an interesting point there, Teddy, with the kind of the protest movement mattering a little bit more than the COVID-19. And I wouldn't have thought that before you said it. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I guess to kick back on that, do you think that there could be a little bit of betting value here that the protest movement is getting the headlines, but do you think that it might not push the American voter as much as maybe kind of the headlines in the media is making it seem?
Well, one of the things, and again, you live and you learn. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Trump was a great bet at -160 in February because the election gets historically elections get decided on the economy. And right. The Trump economy in February was rolling and had been rolling. Mm-hmm. Okay. That was then, this is now. And that, of course, speaks to one of the difficulties of betting in this marketplace versus other marketplaces. This marketplace has one end date. It's called November 3rd. And every wager will be decided on or soon after November 3rd. But anything that changes between now and then, the odds are going to move. You're locked in at whatever number you got. So obviously, the closer you can get to the election before making your bet, the less chance you have of something bizarre happening, like, I don't know, the economy getting completely shut down for 3 months for right. COVID-19. Like, I'm like, given the circumstances in February, I thought that Trump should have been minus $3, that he has to be chalk. And you look at the swing states, and we'll get to it. We'll go through state by state in a little bit. But you go through the states and you're like, yeah, Trump can win this one. Trump can win that one. There's no reason that this election, that these odds should be as short as they are, except the fact that the election is so far out. Now we're 120 days. I believe it's 120 days from today to the election day. Mm-hmm. So the election's still a ways out. But as we saw, and the way the markets tend to move in presidential elections is pre-Labor Day, you don't see the big favorites. Post-Labor Day, the minus 160, minus $2 becomes minus $4, becomes minus $8 because there's less time for the candidates to catch up, for the losing candidate to catch up. And we certainly saw that. I remember seeing that with Obama-McCain pretty heavily. I certainly remember seeing that in the following election with who the hell did Obama run against in 12? I'm spacing on it right now.
Mitt Romney, I believe.
Thank you. With Obama-Romney, where the election, where the numbers were short all summer, and then boom, you get into the fall and it moves. With Obama-McCain in particular, that was tight into September, and then over a 4-day span during the financial crisis, Obama went from minus 130 or minus 150 to minus $4 and then minus $6, and then he was a lock by election day. I'm not saying anyone here is a lock. Okay. Trump looked like a lock and he wasn't. At this stage of the game, 120 days out, certainly when you go through the state by state numbers, when you look at the trend lines, when you look at the polling data, right now, Biden is cheap. Okay. And you can make a case that there are different ways you can elect it. You can bet this. You can bet Democratic nominee versus Republican nominee. You can bet Biden versus Field. You can bet Trump versus Field. You can bet Kanye versus Field. And it's worth noting, Kanye did affect the markets. Not significantly, but Kanye in the race, Biden moved down 5-10 cents in some places. Just in theory, because he's going to suck off some votes for Biden. Don't know if that's true or not. Don't know if he's going to be on the ballot anywhere. We still don't know if it's a joke or not. We haven't heard a press conference. But in theory, the concept of Kanye West on the ballot is a benefit for Donald Trump. In theory, you're not going to see many Trump supporters voting for Kanye West. You may see a handful of Biden supporters or potential Biden supporters voting for Kanye West. So the markets have reacted to Kanye's potential inclusion in the betting in the presidential race by slightly lowering Biden's odds. Because if Kanye gets some traction, it's generally the third party candidate does not vote. If you're trying to get out the status quo, if you're Biden and trying to get out the status quo of Trump, third party candidate doesn't help you at all. And a third party candidate that siphons off a decent amount of votes is worthy of a significant odds change. We haven't seen that. Obviously, no one thinks Kanye is going to get a whole bunch of votes. I don't know if he's even going to make any ballots, but the market did move on his announcements with a little bit of money coming against Biden.
And Teddy, we got Steve in the chat box saying key to election is if they allow 3 head-to-head debates. If so, Trump has value. If not, in virtual voting allowed, Biden will win. That's in Steve's opinion. Anything there on if they do allow 3 head-to-head debates and that really helping Trump?
I agree with the concept for multiple reasons. All right. Number one is that we've seen Trump's gaffes. All right. They've been on display since he was the nominee in 2016. Biden's been kept under wraps. And as his political strategy, I don't blame him.
It seems to be working in the betting market.
Exactly. It's what's working in the polls.
Mm-hmm.
Biden's up double digits all over the place, state after state. Biden's up 50 to 40, 52 to 37, 48 to 36. I mean, Biden's got significant leads in a significant number of key states. So you say, well, What does that mean for the markets? It just means that we're further out right now. And if these numbers were on display 2 months from now, Biden's minus 1,000. All right. But we're not there yet. Now, when it comes to the debates themselves, all right, in theory, Biden gaffes. All right. And that gives Trump, if you're up double digits, you don't want 3 debates.
Okay.
You don't want any debates.
Yeah.
Because all you can do is lose. I can't imagine that Democrats are going to send Biden out there 3 times. They might, but I would agree with the assessment. More debates helped the incumbent in terms of a big market move. And again, we've already seen a switch of favorites, 3-2 to 3-2 Trump to 3-2 the other way. And at 3-2 Trump, I thought it was a great bet. At 3-2 Biden right now, I'm not going to argue that to me, it looks like the right side. But at 120 days out, with the possibility of Biden gaffes, the real possibility of Biden gaffes coming, I'm not about to put more money on Trump. I had money on Trump. I've gotten off that with Biden money right now. And if I'm going to say, how do the odds come back? How does this move back towards pick'em? There's only 2 ways. There's 3 ways. But, I don't think we're solving COVID-19. But if sports comes back, that helps. And that is some return to normalcy. And I think that helps the incumbent. If the unemployment rate doesn't continue to, it's been dropping the last few months, but we've seen the economic indicators be, I'm going to say, they're very mixed. If you want to look in the economic data and find good news, boy, you can find a bunch of good news. Jobs created, all of that. You want to look in the economic data and find bad news, you can find a bunch of bad news as well. I don't know. I'm not convinced that COVID is going to be solved. But if the news out of the economy is good, that's a big benefit for Trump. So there are multiple ways that Trump can get back into the race and even become a favorite again in this race. It's just a matter of how likely those are. COVID-19 being solved, economy being good, Biden screwing up. And when you put in those 3 factors together, say maybe there's a decent chance, a 20% chance, a 33% chance, some chance that one of those 3 things happens that gets Trump competitive against. But let's not forget one more thing, and that is when we look back to 2016, which was, the greatest upset in modern presidential betting history,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe the greatest upset in presidential betting history. I didn't go back 200 years to find out, but certainly in modern presidential history, the markets basically said, well, we trusted the polls. This time we're not going to trust them as much. There's something to be said for that conceptually, but in a lot of ways, Trump's election was a perfect storm where different things came together in the last week or 2 before the election that worked out perfectly for Donald Trump. To expect that to happen twice in a row with bad polls, I wouldn't count on it. But Biden deserves to be chalk right now, and deserves to be fairly significant chalk at this stage. But again, you have to take that with a grain of salt. Last time I said Trump deserved to be significant chalk, and that ended up being a bad wager.
And that was my follow-up question. Can you trust the polls, Teddy? Because, last time in 2016, if I remember right, Hillary Clinton was going off as minus 1,000 favorite, right about that range. And obviously that was wrong, or at least in the election, it was wrong. So how much can we going forward with, just the way we're kind of judging and grading these polls? Is there now a flaw going forward, and we got to figure that out as polling is being graded, that it is flawed and you can't go off of it?
Well, if these odds were based on the polling, Biden would be minus 500 right here.
Okay, so that's already in effect.
They're saying that it's early. What the markets are saying is that it's still early and anyone can still screw up. But when we go through the state by state numbers, it's not pretty for the incumbent right now, and that's becoming the mainstream narrative. And again, what happened in 2016, where Hillary, it was between 8 and 9 p.m. Pacific time, between 11 and midnight Eastern time. I'm almost sure. Maybe it was an hour early. Maybe it was between 7 and 8. I'm almost sure it was between 8 and 9. It was, but in that hour, Hillary went from minus 800 to plus 800.
because of Florida, right?
No, that
Florida.
was when Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin all went boom, boom, boom.
Mm-hmm.
That was, the early stuff didn't move the number. Hillary was still a big favorite. Now, it's definitely worth talking about the 2016 markets. All right, when you think about Trump supporters and Clinton supporters, they come from different demographics oftentimes, and it felt to me like the markets in 2016 and again in 2020 are dominated. Dominated is not the right word, but the smart money is on the Democratic nominee. All right, whether that is political, whether that is, all right, well, they think kind of like me, so I think that that's the right side. It felt like there was a lot of circular logic in terms of Hillary in 2016. And when you talk to people from the swing states, I talk to people that there's no way that Trump can win these states. And I'm like, and maybe he can. Given the circumstances here, where we're still 120 days out, right now, to me, Biden looks not unbeatable, but in good position. But the fact that the polls were, people are saying they were wrong. No, they were within the margin of error. And there were certainly issues with the polls in terms of predicting turnout levels of various voting groups. And that's where the polls failed. The polls failed because the rural voters turned out far greater than the urban voters. And the polls didn't take that into account in terms of far bigger numbers and percentage numbers. And the polls missed that. Mm-hmm. So, number one, the polls are better. They've learned, we learn from mistakes. Number two, 2016 was something of a perfect storm for the things working to allow Trump to pull the big upset. I wouldn't expect the polls to be dead wrong on election day again this year. But again, we're talking 4 months out. The polls do change. And that's why when I'm like, I think it's hard for me to picture a scenario in which Biden loses right now. 4 months ago, I was saying it's hard for me to picture a scenario where Trump loses. So things can and do change.
All right, good stuff, Teddy. And guys, we got the states coming up here and also the Democratic vice president nominee odds here. We'll get Teddy's opinion on that. We got a bunch of people here in the chat, and guys, shoot out a couple more questions here on the main election. We'll try to get them out here to Teddy. But Teddy, do want to kind of ask you a couple questions off the chat box here. Sure. Let's see here. Scott Brown saying hospitalizations are going up in Arizona, Texas, and Florida. I think that has a lot to do here with this election and how COVID-19 kind of is towards November. I'm pretty sure you would agree. Yeah, it was one of your points in this election. So I do think watching that could be a key indicator. And also John Williams here asking in the chat box, can you ask Teddy just how big of a role the silent majority will play in this election?
Okay, so give me the first question again. I'm sorry.
No, it wasn't really a question. It was one of the points you already made that I do agree with, and how COVID-19 kind of ends here going into November. I mean, with hospitalizations up, and if they continue to rise around, and we're going to have to shut down again, I don't think there's any doubt that hurts Trump, Teddy.
Yeah, if the economy's in shambles, Trump does not get reelected, and it's highly unlikely to see Trump get reelected, and if you look at some of the economic data, and again, we've seen over the last 3 months, we saw, most dismal economic data for April, and then May and June were significantly better. We don't know what the next phase is going to look like. Certainly people are out and about. They're spending money in a way they weren't spending money a month or two ago. But the fact that there is an ongoing epidemic is certainly a major concern for the president. I don't think that the reaction to the outbreak is something that has been beneficial for Trump's odds. And the worse it gets, the worse it is for him in terms of the numbers. But as we've seen, we have hospitalizations going up, we have ICUs going up, we have cases going up. Deaths are a lagging indicator. Deaths are not a leading indicator. We'll have to see if the American public is willing to accept, 100,000 or 50,000 or however many thousand new cases a day, and still, in theory, keep the economy going. To me, it doesn't. I'm not confident that's going to happen.
We got Scott Brown in the chat box saying people like Biden more than Hillary. And I think he brings up an interesting point here, Teddy, and I'll explain why. Pretty much throughout my life, the winner of the presidential election, this is just my opinion, but I'll throw it out there. Feel free to disagree with me. I call it kind of the beer factor. Who you would rather have a beer with won the election. Meaning, yes. Obama, I thought he was a kind of
every guy. Election in my lifetime.
Yeah. It's same thing with Bush, Republican or Democrat. Do you think that there's something there to that Biden's just more likable than Hillary Clinton, therefore helping the Democrats?
I'm sure. I don't think there's any question.
Okay.
Hillary was a candidate that came with an enormous amount of baggage. Biden has a fair bit of baggage himself, but one of the, baggage things that he doesn't have, and is that he is more likable than Hillary was in that regard.
Right.
There was a question about the silent majority, and that's a really interesting question. Where the old Nixon silent majority that Trump's kind of been playing to in his messaging. But the country in 1972 is not the country in 2020. And the concept of this silent majority is going to show up and win us, landslide elections. I'm not convinced that it's there. I don't think the silent majority is there the way that it was. It came out for sure against Hillary. I don't think it comes out against Joe. I wouldn't look at the silent majority as being, Trump's hidden trump card. I'm not convinced that's going to be a factor.
All right, Teddy, and follow him on Twitter at Teddy_covers, myself on Twitter at Drew Martin Betts. Guys, each and every Monday, 1:00 Eastern time, we're right here, same time, same place, doing the NFL opening line report. But we found time to sneak in a little politics betting here for this week. So if you're liking the content, please give us a thumbs up. And if you're watching on replay, feel free to chime in the comments. We like to read them, and we can kind of hone in on where to concentrate in the future. Teddy, where do you want to run from here? You want to go to the Democratic VP nominee, or you want to hit these states?
But just a minute, because the one thing I want to talk about is how to actually bet it. If you want Biden or if you want Trump, or there is more chance than normal in this election cycle for at least one of the two, in theory, candidates not to actually be there on election day. All right. There is a chance.
Because of their age?
There is a chance that Mike Pence at some point becomes the Republican nominee. I'm not going to say whether it's a good chance. It's not a good chance, but there is some chance. It's not zero. Yes, because of Trump's age. Yes, because of the other factors that are going on. There's some chance that you can call it 1%, 2%, 3%. Mm-hmm. It's not a great chance. Maybe say 5%. But there's some chance that Pence ends up being the guy who's running on November 3rd. And it's a similar story for Biden. Biden is the oldest candidate running for president in history, I think. Or be the oldest president to take his first term in history. There's a chance that Biden's vice presidential nominee could end up being the nominee for both of these. So if you're making a bet and you don't want to get froze out, you might want to do Democrat versus Republican. Or Biden versus Field, or Trump versus Field, as opposed to Trump versus Biden. If it's a specific Trump versus Biden bet, the books will have the opportunity to cancel that wager if one of those two guys doesn't go. And they will cancel that wager based on their own liability. If it's so you may want to do it Biden versus Field, Trump versus Field, Trump versus Biden, Biden versus Field, Trump versus Field, Democrat versus Republican, as opposed to Trump versus Biden, I would do it one of the first 3 ways as opposed to the last way. I think that's the safer way to bet it.
I'm 100% in agreement. And just to add a little fuel to that fire, just reading off of Bet Online odds right here, Donald Trump plus 130, Joe Biden minus 165 now I'm seeing. But you could just do Republican versus Democrat, and it's minus 160 plus 130. So if you kind of like the party, you should probably just bet on the party rather than the name, because a question I have for you, let's say you do bet on Donald Trump plus 130 and something happens in between now and then, and it is Mike Pence. I actually don't think they'll refund that, Teddy. I think you're going to lose your bet.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay. Yeah, just this is so that makes even more reason for you to do party.
Exactly. There could be plenty of grading issues.
Yeah, and also keep in mind, this isn't the Nevada Gaming Control.
Correct.
This is offshore, so it is a good book. I've used it personally in the past, but it is what it is. You get what you kind of pay. What happens wherever they are located. So we got Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and just to add to what you were saying, Mike Pence is third on the futures list here at plus 4,000, followed by Hillary Clinton at plus 5,000. Heck, do you think that that's enough of a plus price on Mike Pence to take a shot?
No.
Okay.
It's a 1 or 2% chance. It's some chance, but if it's a 1% chance, I don't want plus 4,000.
Okay.
Even a 2% chance, I don't want plus 4,000.
All right, Teddy. Are we ready?
And then, on the concept, Hillary. I'm thinking Hillary's odds. Shut up. Andrew Cuomo's odds. No. Nikki Haley's listed as a odds. No, I'm not. This is not the long shot. Does not win the presidential election very often.
All right, Teddy. Should we talk about VP odds, or did you want to go state by state with anything?
Let's talk VP first. I thought VP is interesting, and this is something I'm looking for. I want a field. I'm looking for a field on VP. Okay,
I don't see one.
Me neither.
There's probably a reason why.
Yeah. So when you look at the history of and of course we know who one of the 2 VPs is going to be. So we're only looking at one. Who have we had for the VPs? Tim Kaine last time of the losing candidate, Paul Ryan, Sarah Palin, John Edwards, Joe Lieberman, Jack Kemp, Dan Quayle, Lloyd Benson, Geraldine Ferraro, Walter Mondale. We can go back and go to 1980. And it's pretty much half and half. Literally, when you go through it, Mondale, the establishment candidate. Ferraro came out of nowhere. Benson was the establishment candidate. Quayle came out of nowhere. Kemp was an establishment candidate. Lieberman was too. Edwards was a little bit young. Palin came out of nowhere. Ryan was an establishment candidate. Kaine was an establishment candidate. There's a mix between establishment guys and out of nowhere guys. Biden has already limited himself in terms of who he will. He said, I promise. He pledged to nominate a female for vice president back in the debates back in the day. So he's already boxed himself in that regard, which means that you got to ask. And boy, we've seen the odds bump around a lot. Kamala Harris has been the favorite to be the vice president from the get-go, and even now she's in the pick'em range at plus 100. We've seen the markets move heavily towards Susan Rice over the course of the last week or two, where Susan Rice has gotten a fair bit of love. Former Obama, she had a bunch of jobs in the Obama administration, but she's not someone who's run for elective office on a regular basis. Tammy Duckworth is another one whose odds are moving north, a senator from Illinois, where she has suddenly attracted a little bit of attention. But really, the basic question in the markets right now, and of course, there's Val Demings is still in play, the rep from Florida, Keisha Lance Bottoms, the mayor from Atlanta, Stacey Abrams, the former Senate candidate, Elizabeth Warren, the senator. The one out of all the long shots, the one that intrigued me was Michelle Grisham, the only Latino in the field who's really listed, and someone who has experience in a lot of different areas in government and who hasn't really bounced around in the betting market. She's 25 to 1. you're taking a long shot, that's someone I thought that absolutely stood out. If you take the long shot, have some money on the favorite with it. Harris, you make one bet on Harris, you make one bet on Grisham, and you break even if Harris gets it, and if Grisham gets it, obviously make a nice little score. The value on Rice is come and gone, and I would not be shocked in the slightest if the eventual vice presidential nominee comes out of left field. The ultimate out of left field was who the hell is Sarah Palin. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that. I wouldn't be shocked. So to say, a field at 5-1 or 6-1, is certainly worth a look, in my opinion.
Fair enough, Teddy. I no disagreement here. I mean, it gets pretty pricey, as far as the plus price, the further you go down, obviously. But Kamala Harris, like you said, is the favorite. Seeing Susan Rice at plus 250, Val Demings plus 800. Those are the only three I'm seeing at Bet Online that are under plus 1,000. So then there's a lot of candidates there, kind of way over plus 1,000, like you said. Even Hillary Clinton at plus 5,000. Barack Obama, I'm seeing here plus 6,600. I mean, I don't even believe he can be chosen, right?
I'll book it.
Yeah. Okay. So they're putting it out there, and he can't even. That's
I'll book. Yeah. And everyone wants to bet Clinton or Obama for vice president. Hillary or Barack. I'll take whatever action you want to give. Whatever. I'll give you whatever odds you want. And take whatever action you want to give me, because I don't think either one's going to happen. Obviously, I mean, Tammy Duckworth is the one name that I keep hearing whose odds have legitimately moved along with Susan Rice's in recent weeks. The senator from Illinois. So that might be one other person worth considering, but it really feels like we're likely to see a vice presidential candidate of color this year, and that will absolutely influence my betting in this market.
Yeah, it makes sense, and people have been saying, it seems like the headlines anyway, of a black woman more so than a man. Do you see anything behind that? Maybe
I'm not convinced it's going to be an
Booker.
African American. Like I said, I thought there was value with Grisham was the only Latino that I've heard repeatedly the field at 25-1.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced it'll be an African American, though it may well be. But I do think that there's a pretty good chance it'll be a person of color of one sort or another.
Teddy, what about the states? Did you see any kind of value there, Republican or Democrat to win Arizona or Florida, Alabama? I'm seeing pretty much all the states are listed.
Yeah, so it's really interesting when you look at the broader market. Biden minus 160. I'm going to call Trump plus 140. You're calling it plus 130. Okay. And then you look state by state. Right here, just let me pull up my state stuff here. And all this, I mean, like the election in theory is going to be decided in a handful of states. All right. Well, Democrat to win Arizona minus 155. All right. I'm just going to give you the must states. Democrat to win Colorado, or in theory the purple states. Democrat to win Colorado minus 700. These are the electoral college. All right. Democrat to win Florida is basically pick 'em. Minus 105 the Democratic side, which that was, the $2 dog. Democrats only plus 120 to win Georgia. When's the last time a Democrat carried Georgia? Was that Clinton? Bill Clinton. Democrat to win Iowa is only plus 130 right now. Iowa is supposed to be a solidly Republican seat, Republican state. At this stage, Democrat to win Maine minus 350, to win Michigan again, where Trump won in 2016. Michigan Democrat minus 280.
Wow.
Minnesota Democrat minus 425. I'm going to keep going. Nevada, it used to be a purple state, minus 500. Nevada. My apologies, I pronounced it slightly wrong. New Mexico. Minus 550 for the Democratic side. North Carolina, Democrat minus 125. Ohio, which Ohio's been really red in recent elections. Democrat to win Ohio is only plus 115. So when you look at all of these, Pennsylvania, Democrat minus 240. Well, there was, and that one that stood out. Democrat to win Texas is only plus 220. If the Democrats are winning Texas, it's an ugly election night for Republicans. Wisconsin, Democrat minus 190. You look at all those factors. Look at those marketplace numbers. Those are the key states. Those are the only states that matter in presidential elections. And basically, Biden's favored minus 150, minus $2, minus 250, minus $3, minus 350 in all of them. So when you look at those numbers and compare them to the overall election numbers,
something's off a little bit.
You say that Biden's cheap for the overall election. You can't look at the state numbers and not say Biden at minus 160 offers some value. Whether that value holds for the next 120 days or not, I can't tell you. But given the states and given the betting market numbers in the states, that said, if you want to look at it the other way,
I was going to say, yeah, flip it on its head.
Instead of betting Trump plus 140, you bet Trump at the big plus prices in all those states, and you'll get a nice little score if he ends up winning. So that might be the best way of betting this, although I don't know who's going to win. But in terms of maximizing your value on Trump, if you want to bet Trump, bet the individual states as opposed to the presidency as a whole, and you're likely to get a bigger return on investment for your Trump dollars.
All right. And guys, appreciate you tuning in. Please smash the like button. We do have the Korean baseball show later today, I believe 4:00 Eastern. That's a good one with Dave Koken and Andrew McGinnis running down the Korean baseball card. We also got UFC golf show coming up later in the week, so check those out on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Got a couple props questions here for you, Teddy, as we end it, but is there anything else you wanted to throw out there?
No, I mean, we wanted to talk state by state. We wanted to talk VP. We want to talk the big picture. We want to talk why I was so wrong in February. So I think we hit the basic points we wanted to do. I love all the questions. I do my best. And again, I have a few notes here. All I got notes is numbers. So I'll do my best to answer as best I can. But great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Teddy. Okay, a couple props here I'm just seeing on Bet Online. We got, will Kanye West participate in an election debate? Yes, plus 700.
Yes, plus
700.
Plus 700. Yeah, I could. Kanye West, in order to get on any debate stage, you have to be polling 5% nationally. Do you see Kanye West polling 5% nationally?
No, I don't.
Either. I would bet the no there, and I would bet it without any hesitation.
And that goes for every. So back when Ross Perot, he made it right
Sure. Ross Perot was getting 20% in the polls.
Wow. You think we'll ever get back there? I think that would be good for our country to get a third parties where you don't have only two choices. I don't know how you feel about that.
There are pros and cons.
Are there?
That said, I don't know that if there's one thing that I could magically wish, it would be a 3-party system instead of a 2.
Yeah.
But to get from here to there, the structural impediments to creating a nationwide third party they're not just significant, they're enormous. The Democrats and Republicans have done very well to crowd out the room and the space and the oxygen and the financing for everybody else. It's nothing that will happen in a single election cycle. It's the type of thing, if you're talking about a real third party in the U.S., it's the type of thing that can only happen through it'd take a 20 or 25 year cycle for that to be real. And they would be fighting against it at you'd be fighting the power the whole way, I
don't agree with you. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I meant to say, we got Chris WagerTalk saying, are you guys gambling on Congress at all? Yeah. Have you ever gambled on that, Teddy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, for me, it's a little bit early for that. And, I shouldn't say it's a little bit early, but I'm not going through the race. I haven't been through the races. And the polling for congressional races and Senate races pre-Labor Day, there's not much there. So all that stuff tends to come a little bit later in the spectrum for me. Haven't seen a lot out there just yet. So early on, we're really talking president. and if you want to make, who's going to control the House or who's going to control the Senate, there are bets to be made there. But the broader picture is definitely at this stage of the game is, the presidential, vice presidential. If we have time to do one of these in September, I'd love to do Senate odds and all of that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But that's later in the spectrum for now. The markets, the markets and the polling and the predictive element of what are we looking at this stage? There's still a lot to go.
Okay. And shout out to Don Ricci in the chat box. What's up, buddy? Cripsack, Kev Will, Scott Brown as well. Appreciate you guys chiming in. Teddy, did you want to throw out anything before we shut this down?
Hey, it was interesting. So it's funny. So, some pods, Drew, it's all in my head and I already know what I'm going to do. And you do.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this pod since we talked about it last week,
Yeah.
Like, let me track this down. Let me look at that. It's interesting to me. It really is. So I appreciate you guys indulging my, me finding something interesting. But it's an interesting discussion, and hopefully we'll have a chance to do another one before all said and done. Actually, hopefully we won't have a chance to do another one before it's all said and done because we'll be too busy with sports. I look forward to being overwhelmed in weeks to come.
Absolutely, Teddy. I was going to say that too. I hope we don't have enough time to do one, but if we do, it would be fun. And do you have a free bet here on Donald Trump at the plus price or Joe Biden at this minus price?
At this moment, I could only bet Biden. I wouldn't. Yeah, And again, I had Trump. I got off the Trump, and at this stage, I can only get Biden. It's from a betting standpoint. It's difficult to see enough of an economic turnaround between now and November for Donald Trump to get the economy bump. And if he doesn't have the economy bump, he's not winning the election.
All right, let me throw it back to you because I was thinking about this as well. It's hard to knock an incumbent out, though, Teddy. Really? I mean, it's been since '88, I believe, since that's actually happened. We've gone 3 or 4 straight presidents where their second term, it seems like they always win.
Since Warren Harding, and Warren Harding was the president during the Depression, obviously,
okay.
But since Harding, you got Roosevelt multiple terms, Truman multiple terms, Eisenhower multiple terms, Kennedy dead, LBJ decides not to run. Okay, you got Nixon multiple terms. Ford was never elected, so he doesn't count. So basically, you have Jimmy Carter and George Bush Sr. as the only one-term, the legit one-term presidents who didn't win re-election.
Right.
You can make a case for Ford, but Ford never won an election. So there's certainly an enormous power of incumbency, but Trump is a different president, and the Trump presidency has been different.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that that doesn't the power of incumbency for many presidents is going to be greater than it is than for Trump in the markets.
And going off the two that you said, Bush, the first Bush, and then I believe Jimmy Carter not winning. Would you say it was because I would say Bush was because of the economy?
They were both economy.
Okay.
Carter, we were in stagflation in 79 and 80. Where the inflation is going up and unemployment's going up, and that's they're supposed to be
that's terrible.
Opposite factors. Yeah. Right. And then you had the Iranian crisis, the hostage crisis, and Carter was dead. It had very little chance of re-election. Bush, the senior, was a year, 18 months out. Bush Senior was a lock. We had the successful Iraq War. That was a successful one. We got in, we got out. Remember, Kuwait, all that. Yeah.
Wasn't much of a fight.
Yeah. But then there was a moderate recession. It wasn't even a crazy recession in 91 into 92.
Okay.
But it came at the wrong time for Bush. And historically, and you go through election after election, go look, younger candidate versus older candidate, the younger candidate beats the older candidate every time. When there's a significant difference, when it's Reagan Mondale, it doesn't matter. Okay. But when one candidate is Obama's age and the other candidate is Trump's age, the Obama age candidate wins. And you can go back 100 years, you'll see how that happens. I mean, it doesn't change that much. The younger, energetic guy tends to win. So there's the power of incumbency, but that's not the only power that exists. But of course, the Democrats ran a candidate that's older than Trump, so that's nothing going to work in their favor this year.
Yeah. Have to wait on that. That is that little betting tidbit there, Teddy. But hey, great show, Teddy. I appreciate everybody coming and joining us. Kev, Mark, Scott, everything in the chat box. And guys, we'll be back next Monday, 1 o'clock. NFL opening line report style. I think a little bit more back to normal, right, Teddy?
Yeah. Let's talk. We should do next week is talk future book odds for the NFL.
Okay.
Talk some odds to win it all, odds to win divisions, odds to win. I'm not going to go season wins, but we'll do odds to win divisions, odds to win conferences, odds to win Super Bowl. We'll do that next Monday.
All right. Sounds good. He's Teddy Covers. I'm Drew Martin. Guys, please smash the like button on your way out, and best of luck with the bets. Peace.